This is Pete Wenners from Table Rock Techniques from the Pros, and man, have I got a guy that's going to talk to us today. I mean, this guy's won 7 Bassmaster events, 4 elite tournaments, 3 invitationals, been to the Classic, what, 11 times?
10 times.
10
shooting
times.
for 11, but didn't get it done this year.
And what a better guy. I mean, he cut his teeth fishing Table Rock Lake, and we're going to talk about crankbaits today, and no better guy than the man that invented and designed the Rock Crawler Spro crankbait, Mike McClelland. Man, it's awesome, Mike, to have you.
You know, well, first I'd like to say thanks for having me. It's been great knowing you all the years that I've known you. I mean, Pete and I used to run around the country together when I was just getting started. In fact, I believe we were staying together the first 2 opens I won. And, you know, having
back to
back, you know, having a relationship with someone like that for so long means a lot. And, you know, you talk about the success I've had here on Table Rock and other lakes. Well, a lot of that success comes from people like you and Bill Beck that, you know, kind of mentored me when I was just getting started fishing. And, you know, when you are around someone like you guys and you get to hear what you guys do on a daily basis because of your guiding, it really influences how you look at tournament fishing. And, you know, that's a big deal. And that was one thing that had a big part in why we designed this Spro Rock Crawler the way we did. You know, for years here on Table Rock, we threw a number of different crankbaits. We threw the Rebel, and we threw the Wiggle Wart, and we threw a number of different baits, but there was always things about those baits that I wasn't real crazy about. You know, to me, the Wiggle Wart never went deep enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't heavy enough to throw, and that was the things that I wanted to design into the Rock Crawler. And essentially, we nailed it in the way I look at it.
Oh, you did.
I have caught a limit both days. This time of year on Table Rock, which isn't totally normal. I mean, when you get the right conditions, it is, you know. Unfortunately, we had a little color in the water. But the thing that's cool about this Rock Crawler, it's very subtle sound-wise. It'll dive as deep as 12 or 13 feet if you put it on 8 or 10 pound line, and it'll come through the cover. I mean, it will come through it. It backs up good when you get it in a rock and comes free. And
I noticed working it through logs. It's almost kind of reminds you like a balsa bee. You can walk it through a laydown or a log. You stop the bait, it's buoyant.
Yeah.
It'll back, like you say, it'll back right up.
And the other thing that we did and that Spro does such a great job with is colors. I mean, this is actually a brand new color. This is going to be Phantom Watermelon.
Is this the one you caught him on the last couple
I
days?
caught a few on this. I actually caught some on a prototype of this bait that had a little bit more orange on the tail, but it was basically the same bait with a little bit of orange on the tail. But I caught them on 3 different baits this week. I caught them on the Phantom Watermelon, I caught them on a prototype Phantom bait, and then I caught them on the Phantom Green and the Green Craw. You know, essentially everything was craw pattern with a little bit of orange, a little bit of green, and you know, every time you catch a smallmouth or anything, they'd spit up craws that had a lot of orange.
Yeah, if you look in your live wells, you'll see the orange.
Exactly, but you know, the thing about it is the bait works so well for lakes like this and any lake across the country that's got rock and gravel. You know, and that's the thing that's so great about this Spro Rock Crawler. And I know you like to call it a rock crusher, and it will crush some rock.
We ought to call it a bass crusher because the bass have been crushing it, you know.
That would work too, but you know, it's just been awesome to work with Spro and have the opportunity to design the Rock Crawler as well as the McStick. And I mean, you know, the McStick's a huge bait here in the springtime, and you know, a little bit in the fall. But
it's my favorite jerk bait. I mean, to me, it's a lot like the old Rogue, except it's got a rattling casting chamber in it where you can fire it out there. You can throw it on a bait cast without any problem, and they all suspend real good. It's just, you know, Spro really makes some good quality baits. And Mike, what do you like for a rod? I mean, what kind of action?
You know, when it comes to rods for cranking, everybody's got different thought processes on that. I typically always like to throw it on a 7-foot, and it's a fairly light action rod. It's actually what they call the new cranker. It's a 417, so it's a 4-power 7-foot rod. It's got a real soft tip, so you know, when you're winding that bait through the rock, the tip is always given, and then when that fish gets it, the rod will load up. It doesn't have it's not a real stiff rod. It's more parabolic, and that's probably one of the big keys. As far as line, I like to throw Sunline fluorocarbon. I like to throw the FC Reaction. It's got a little bit more stretch in it. It doesn't sink as much as the normal fluorocarbons, so it really works well on a crankbait to achieve the feel that you need to have. And then as far as reels, either a 6-3 to 1 or a 7-3 to 1 this time of the year. Now in the springtime, when this bait really shines, I like to throw a 5-4 to 1 or a 5 to 1 gear ratio reel. But once the fish get active, a 6-3 or 7 to 1 gear ratio reel is really important.
Do you usually stay with a 10-pound line?
Generally stay with 10 or 12. Sunline's diameters are a little bit smaller than some of the lines that a lot of people throw, so I will step up to 12 and 14, especially if I'm fishing less than 10 foot.
Yeah.
If I'm wanting to get the bait down, deeper than 10, I generally always stick to 10-pound line. And that's been a key this week. I mean, the one particular bait that I caught them on the best this week, or actually probably the one particular rod and reel combination, was a Cabela's Arachnid reel with 10-pound FC reaction line, and I was able to get that bait out a little bit deeper and keep it down there in that 10 to 12 foot range, and I really feel like that's where a lot of the bites came from this week.
I've been a big believer in the Sunline. I've been using it for several years. I just love it.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff.
It really works good. What type of banks were you keying on?
This is a pretty good indication of the kind of banks that you want to key on.
Used to call it wigglewort. Now we'll have to call it a rock
crawler. That's right, a rock crusher or rock crawler bank.
Rock crawler bank.
But it's kind of changed through the course of the last week. When I first got here and started practice, I was catching them on the more big rock. Little bit of gravel mixed in, but the last 2 days I've found that the smallmouth have really pushed to the gravel. And I've caught them on a lot of gravel banks with just a few rock mixed in, more like that right there where you've got a lot of gravel and just a few rock. But the thing about the bait is it'll catch them anywhere the bottom's firm. You don't want to be throwing it on a soft, mucky bottom, and we don't typically fish there anyway. But as long as you've got a good solid bottom, even sand. I've caught them on sand drops on the river, things like that. So, I mean, the bait'll hunt and catch them about anywhere you've got a good bottom consistency.
And it comes, is that number 5 Gamakatsu?
It does. It comes standard with number 5 Gamakatsu.
And the hooks don't tangle, huh?
They do not tangle. That was one of the things when you look at the development of different baits. I mean, some of the older baits that we threw, and that was one of the biggest problems, is if you tried to change the hooks at all, they would intertangle when you cast it. And we put a lot of time and effort into making sure this bait's right. It's a little bit bigger than some of the baits that we used to throw, and it allows you to actually upsize. I can upsize to a 2X strong number 4 on the front if I want to make the bait less buoyant. There's a lot of different things, but the key is having those super sharp Gamakatsu hooks on it. I mean, when one of them sniffs it, he's going to get hooked.
Yeah.
And that's a big key when you're throwing a crankbait.
Yeah, and I think, like the 5s, like a lot of the wiggle-warts used to come with like a number 6 hook.
Exactly.
Too small of a hook. We'd try to put a 4 on it, and like you say, then the hooks would tangle.
Yeah.
I mean, what's good about them baits, out of the package, every one I've had, I haven't had to do any tuning on it.
So far, they've been really, really good. Occasionally, if you get it hung up and you really mess with getting it unhung, you might knock it out of tune. The thing that I will say about them, they tune really well, but they're very, very touchy. So when you start to tune one of these baits, don't just grab it. Generally, I can just get it with my fingernail and just touch it
pliers,
one way or the other and get it back in tune. And once it gets in tune, it's almost like it just keeps itself there. I don't know if it's just something to do with the way the eye is in the bait, but it stays in tune so well. I mean, I've thrown them for hours this week, and I haven't had one get out of tune all week.
Speaking of tuning, what we're talking about is if the bait runs too far to the left or too far to the right, what you want to do if it's running left, you want to bend right there where the split ring is, you want to bend it to the right. Just opposite. If it's running right, bend it left. And like Mike says, just a little bit of the time.
That's all it takes. But the thing that I have to do, because when you start talking right and left, people are saying, well, do you turn the bait this way or that way? So I always say you bend it the direction you want it to go if you're looking at the bait. Okay. So that basically, if it's running one way, you're bending it the opposite.
Right. And I look at it from the front, but if it's running left, I want to bend it right.
Exactly.
Well, Mike, we really appreciate you giving us the time to do this. We're here at the Bassmaster Open at Table Rock Lake, day 2. And, the fall, it's a predominant bait. In the springtime, I mean, we've got 2 months of prime crankbait.
That's the thing that I think is so cool about this rock crawler in the sense from I've never been able to catch them as good in the fall on this style crankbait as I could in the spring. And when I prototyped this bait last fall, it was done right here on Table Rock Lake, and I started catching them the 3rd or 4th week of October, and I caught them clear until the water got down to the lower 40 or to the mid to lower 40s.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is a bait that will catch them almost any time from fall all the way through to the spawn.
Yeah.
It's just a phenomenal Spro rock crawling, crushing fool.
Again, thanks a bunch, Mike.
You bet you,
It's
Pete.
been a pleasure.
Enjoyed it.